What's going on, guys? Hey, my name is Logan Manzanares, and today I'm going to share with you all the lessons that I've learned from asking people who have been in the real estate market, who have been investors, who have been homeowners back in like 2006, 7, 8 when the housing market crashed, like the biggest crash in the real estate crash in history. And exactly the lessons that I learned from them, I'm going to share those with you so you don't have to make the same mistakes they did. So without further ado, let's go. Hey guys, if you're new here, my name is Logan Manzanares. I currently own $5 million in real estate with my wife. We currently have cash flow well over $100,000 every single year. And I make these videos on this channel for you so you can learn exactly how to get into the real estate game, whether it be a home buyer, whether it be an investor, and start to play in this game because at the end of the day, like, there has been more millionaires, there's been more financial freedom created through real estate than any other vehicle in this entire planet. And so this video in this channel is for you to learn how to become financially free so you can do what you want with who you want as much as you want to do it. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. I've been chatting with a lot of people lately who have been in the real estate market for 10, 15, 20 years, right? And this is really important to understand because they were in the real estate market, they were active in the real estate market when it crashed. And so just to put a little back history on you, the market from about 1999, 2000, it just kept going up, up, and up. 2006, 2007, that's when it was at its top, it was at its peak. And then in 2008, it crashed. Everything came falling down as the waves came in and it came back out. A lot of people were sitting there and they were butt naked, right? They're like, what the heck just happened to me? And so there's so many lessons to learn what happened back then. And so you can avoid that happening in 2020 where a lot of people, or 2021, where a lot of people are saying, you know what, this market is looking very familiar. The market keeps going up, up, and up. People are buying homes for a crazy amount of prices, over asking price. And they're like, is this very similar to what happened in 2007, 2008? And so I'm here to tell you some of the lessons that I've learned from the people I've reached out to who have been in this game for a really long time. All right, guys, so first off, you have to understand why 2007, 2008 happened, right? And the reason why it happened is because the banks, the lending institutions, they were just giving loans away. Your criteria for getting a loan 2007, 2008 was literally just like you could tell them what you made. You could say, hey, I make $200,000 a year. And the bank would be like, okay, that's it. They would never verify. They wouldn't check on it. You literally could just go in there and say what you wanted to say, right? The only thing they really checked was your credit score. And so what ended up happening is that these lenders were giving away what everybody in the industry was calling fog loans. And so if you could go into a bank and you could fog a mirror, they'd give you a loan, right? Which means everyone was getting loans. You know, there was school teachers having like 4, 5, 6, 7 loans. There was basically all middle-class people, or even like people who couldn't afford, who were getting rejected from rentals, were going out and buying multiple homes, right? Because it was just so easy to get rentals, and the market was appreciating so fast. They're like, hey, it doesn't really matter if I'm losing money on this every single month, because I just know the market's going to go up, up, and up. And so guess what happens when it crashes, right? Exactly. All of a sudden, they gambled, and their gamble didn't pay off, right? So they bought a home for $200,000. The home was worth, $190,000. Like, hey, it's gonna go up over time. And guess what? It crashed down to $150,000. Now they're $40,000 underwater, and they don't have the ability to withstand that, to wait for it to come back up, because they didn't buy it for cash flow. They bought it for appreciation. So there's no way they could rent it for enough money for them to cover their losses, which basically means they had to sell the property, and they had to sell it for a loss, right? And that's one of the biggest reasons why people failed in 2007, 2008 is because they were buying based on appreciation. And appreciation is gambling. And so if you want to gamble, go to Vegas, right? Go bet on sports. But ultimately, like, real estate is not a place for gambling. Another big reason that caused a crash in 2007, 2008 was the type of loans the banks were giving out. So not only were they just giving a loan to anybody and everybody, but they're also giving out specific types of loans, which were called adjustable rate mortgages. Okay, and so you actually don't see very much of these anymore, especially on conventional terms. You'll still see these a lot in commercial loans. But what adjustable rate mortgages are is that they basically said that they can change your interest rate based on what the market does, right? So you can have a loan at 3 or 4%, and then these would jump up, to 7, 8, 9, 10% overnight, right? So all of a sudden, and then what happens when interest rate jumps up? Well, your payment goes up as well. And so if you bought it as an investment property, and you were currently cash flowing $100 a month, you're like, okay, I just bought it just enough, just so it would cash flow, but I'm really banking on appreciation. And then all of a sudden your interest rate jumps up 10%. Now all of a sudden, instead of making $100 a month, now you're losing $300, $400 every single month. And again, as the market crashes, guess what happens? Now your property's underwater and you got to give the house back to the bank. And so this was another huge reason that the market crash happened, is because not only was the lending institutions just giving loans away, but they're also giving you really crap loans. They're giving you loans that adjusted, that started out with super low interest rates, like 1-2% in the first year or two, and then they would jump up astronomically. And so 3-4 years into it, you just couldn't afford your payment, and guess what? The bank got the house back. And so this was another huge mistake that a lot of people made in 2007, 2008 when it came to getting mortgages. And so if we look at the lending landscape today, it is actually really hard to get loans today. The banks are super strict. They have their check boxes, and they don't just ask you for your income, but they verify everything, right? They verify everything. They want your bank statements. They want, if you have W-2 stubs, they want all that. They want all your income. They want to see exactly how many assets you have. They want to see all your liabilities. And they compare that and they put it into some crazy score. And you know what? If your score doesn't meet their criteria, they'll just tell you no, right? Like they're to the point where they don't need your money anymore. And so like there are, because they know how lucky they got to 2007, where they got bailed out, that might not happen again. And so they're not as willing to give away loans and take all this risk anymore. And so that's how the lending landscape has changed today, is that it's way more strict. You have to have a much higher credit score. You have to have a much lower debt to income. You got to have more income. And at the end of the day, like as long as the lending standards stay high, the chances of a huge housing bubble and bust is probably not going to happen. Now, is there going to be a correction? Probably, but a correction is much different than a crash, right? A correction is meaning like, you know, there's a home that got listed for $500,000, it sat for 4 or 5, 6 months, and it got dropped to $480,000, got dropped to $470,000, and you know what? It finally sold at $465,000. Like that's more like what a correction is going to be, rather than, you know, that house was listed at $500,000, and then 3 or 4 months later, after the housing market crashed, now the house is worth $200,000, right? Chances of that happening are very slim, just based on the lending standards, because at the end of the day, like you can always see what like smart businesses learn from their mistakes. And the banks got super lucky that they got bailed out in 2007, 2008. And you know what? They might not be so lucky next time. And so they have made that transition and learned from their mistakes. And that's why it's so hard to actually get loans these days. And that's why I really doubt that there's actually going to be a huge crash coming in the near future based on lending standards. And so that's some of the lessons that I learned from asking investors who've been in the game for a really long time. That's all the lessons they learned from people who lost a lot of money, people who actually made a lot of money as well. And what most people don't tell you is that a market crash or a correction is actually one of the best times to get wealthy, because as prices come down, guess what happens? People start to panic and they start to sell off, they start to go crazy. And so again, especially for people who didn't buy on cash flow, as soon as the market starts to go down, they start to sell off at a discount. So they're willing to sell at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of what that home value was once, because you know what? They don't have the cash flow to support if it keeps going down and down. Whereas someone like me, like I could care less if the property drops by 100%. As long as that property cash flows, I can stick it out. Because at the end of the day, what I know is the one true variable that will not go down unless somehow inflation goes down is rent. Like rent goes up as inflation goes up, and we're definitely in inflationary times. And as long as rent stays flat or continues to grow, then that's how I'm protected against a market crash. So hopefully those are some lessons that I can share with you that are going to help you when you go to look to buy investment real estate or personal real estate, and just understanding like how you get your loan structured, the way it's set up. And really the banks are now here to keep you safe, make sure that you don't have to go through this whole foreclosure process ever again. It's really the key to make sure that you're on the right side of things when we do have a correction or a market crash. And you know what? If it does happen, then be ready to buy, because the best time to get the best deals of real estate is when the market goes down. So hey, if you like this video and like what you're hearing, please like this video, subscribe to this channel. I'll be dropping more videos just like this all the time. So without further ado, I'm out. Bye.